To illuminate the often unseen mental health challenges faced by first responders, police officers, firefighters, paramedics, and 911 dispatchers, by sharing their stories, fostering understanding, and promoting resources for support and healing. We aim to break down stigma, advocate for improved mental health services within the first responder community, and inspire hope and resilience. This is the Weight We Carry podcast.
What's going on, guys? It's Bart and Brittany with the Weight We Carry podcast, and today is an uber special day. We have Keeley Williams-Johnson from New Orleans EMS and the show Nightwatch. Keeley, thank you so much for being on. We really appreciate you being on. How you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me. How you guys?
We're awesome. We really thank you for being on. I know your time's valuable to you, and you're always busy. I know you work EMS all the time, so we know it's busy. If you'd like, could you give yourself a little bit further introduction? Let everyone know who we're talking to today.
Yeah. Again, my name's Keeley. I am a paramedic for New Orleans EMS, 25 years. I got a couple more years and then I can retire. Yay.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. And I was on a show called Nightwatch that followed us around and kind of filmed our lives as paramedics and what we actually do in real life as opposed to what people think we do.
Heck yeah. So let's get into it, okay? Let's start with your story. What initially drew you into the world of public safety, and what do you remember most about those early days in EMS?
Yeah, I come from a first responder family. My uncle was a police officer and also an EMT. And I kind of looked up to him, and was just in awe about the things that he would come home and talk about. Or, of course, I only got the good stuff, right? I mean, I was a kid. You're not going to tell me all the real stuff, but just the uniform and the way he carried himself and the respect that people got. I really was like, I think I want to do that one day. And I just pursued it, and here I am.
Bunch of years later and just rocking it.
Right. Many years later.
So you mentioned your uncle played the big role in getting you interested in becoming a first responder. What was it about watching him work that sparked something in you?
Again, it was just the compassion that he showed people, just helping people when they need help, Again, he had a dual role, and this was many years ago. Life was a lot different. I was probably around 6, 7, and he was a harbor police officer, and sergeant, and then took an EMT course. And he used to work out at the Lakefront Airport as an EMT and as a part-time job. And I used to see his little bag that he would bring home, his little jump bag, and all the goodies that he had up in there, which was really mostly bandages and stuff like that. But, as a 6 or 7-year-old, that's really cool stuff, putting Band-Aids on everybody. Because, at 6 years old, you're obsessed with Band-Aids for whatever reason. And then I remember there was a story that they did about my uncle on the police side. The news did a big story and a big write-up. Long story short, he was doing some undercover work and went on a cruise and ended up making a big drug bust and stuff like that. And so it was like big news down here. So it was really cool. I was proud of him, and I thought, I think I can do something like that.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
And you definitely have.
Yeah, both sides too, actually. So I've been a deputy sheriff. I did that for a while, and then, went back to EMS because that's really where my heart was.
That's how it was with me. Now, Britt, she was an EMT when you turned 15, I think.
16, yeah.
And then she was also a volunteer firefighter. And I didn't get into public safety until I turned 30. Mm-hmm. But I never had the fire background. I went straight into EMS rescue and loved it. I worked 12 years on the trucks, and now I'm a 911 dispatcher. So still there, but on occasion I do miss being on the trucks.
I hear you.
So being raised by a strong, independent mother and in a close-knit family, How do you think that foundation shaped the way you approach the intensity of emergency work?
Just watching my mom do what she had to do, no matter what, to take care of me and herself, just instilled a really good work ethic in me. And I think to do what we do, you really need to have a good work ethic. Um, she never met an enemy. Like, everybody that met her was a friend. She taught me, just by watching her, really how to respect people no matter what, all walks of life. And if there's something that you want, you're the one that's going to have to get it. Don't depend on anybody else. You have to take care of you, and you have to take care of your own and do what you got to do it. And that's how I grew up.
Like, yeah, what a
Yeah.
good work ethic,
Yeah, yeah. So she worked multiple jobs, so that I could go to Catholic schools. Back in the day, the public schools weren't so good down here. And so you didn't have much of a choice. You had to go to a private school or Catholic school, if you could.
Yeah.
And again, she worked multiple jobs, and made sure that that happened for me. And I got a good education.
Awesome. So, Keeley, you had a brief time in the U.S. Navy, but left due to the challenges of being openly gay in the military at that time. What did that experience teach you about identity and resilience, especially as it relates to serving others?
When I was in the military, that was in the 80s, and they had the witch hunts going on, is what they called them. And so, I was in a closet. And it was a group of us that kind of hung out together. We were all gay. We all knew each other were gay. We supported each other. And but we were all technically in the closet. And after a while, I just felt like I was living a lie. I mean, it wasn't me. I wasn't ashamed of who I was as a person, and I had a little incident come up, and then I was like, yeah, I'm gay, and that started the proceedings to out the door. And I was okay with it. The military was gonna be my career. I loved being in the military. You know, um, I went to aviation school and stuff like that, learned how to work on jet engines and did all of that. And was looking forward to going to my first station was going to be Rota, Spain. So I was looking forward to traveling the world and, all of this stuff. And unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. And I mean, I wouldn't change anything because I wouldn't be where I am now.
Yeah.
So I'm one of those people. I know it's a cliche, everything happens for a reason, and I truly believe that. But I had never been in a closet. My family was very accepting. I was, my friends all knew, and so I was never in the closet. When I went into the military, I also had to go in a closet. And after a while, it just wasn't okay with me. I felt that if my family accepted me and loved me for who I was, then that's really all that mattered. And that everybody else should be able to do that. Young and inexperienced with the world, you realize that it didn't. Not everybody does accept you for who you are. And I just said, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to be who I am no matter what. And I just had to make different plans at that point.
So you've been in EMS since the early 90s, starting when your sheriff's department ran EMS. How has that profession and the culture around it changed since then?
Oh, wow. That a lot. I mean, back in the day, it was just, it was rough, physically. It was very physically taxing on your body because we didn't have a lot of the new equipment that we have now, the power stretchers, are a godsend, right? And I mean, how you last in EMS as long as we've lasted and not have had power stretchers before then. That's why everybody my age and that's been in it for 20, 30 years, we got bad knees, we got bad backs, we got bad everything, right? I mean, y'all know what it's like, putting 300-pound people on a stretcher and you and your partner having to lift them. Yeah. So that was a big change. Technology has changed. Um, everything's changed, from the trucks to the equipment that we use, to people's attitudes, like as far as how they use 911. You guys know that it's not used properly. Like back in the day, people really called 911 for real emergencies. Like nobody was calling 911 for a ride to the hospital when I started. And nowadays, unfortunately, that's the bulk of our calls. And but again, the technology and the things that we use, we give blood, we're using ultrasounds. We have intubation equipments that the gyroscope that's got cameras on it and stuff. So it's pretty amazing that the technology and the equipment that we have now compared to what we had back then. It was just MacGyver medicine for real back in the day. You had to know how to make, how to put you had to know how to do everything, and just MacGyver it, because you didn't have the equipment that you needed, or it wasn't actually in existence then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a month after you left EMS is when you got power stretchers.
I was so mad after 2 back injuries.
Yeah.
About like a month after I left and went to the 911 center, they get power lows and the power stretcher. I'm like, are you kidding me?
You know what's funny though? When we first got them, I didn't like them. I was like, these things are so fucking slow. Like it takes forever for the wheels to come up and get the patient in. I'm like, I didn't like them. I like getting the patient from, the ground up, but I didn't like how long it took. It doesn't take long for those wheels, but I'm used to that drop.
Yep.
And it's like, oh my God, it's like I can have a coffee while I'm waiting those leads. Right. But now, if somebody comes to our service and they're like, oh yeah, we don't have power stretchers still, I'm like, oh my God. So
It's like I said, now when we stop down in my old station, I'm like, I shake my head. I'm like, look at all this nice shit.
We just did that like 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
How long y'all been in EMS?
So I started end of 2008, and then I worked full time for 12 years at my service.
And then I went to
2 back injuries.
And I ruptured my distal bicep tendon. That was fun. Power stretcher, see? Didn't have that.
weak. He's weak. Yeah. I went to EMT school when I was 15, and on my 16th birthday, I took my EMT class, my test. So I was a firefighter and an EMT for, I think, around like 11 years until we were pregnant with our son, and then
I'm sorry.
and then I worked at the hospital for 11 years. I'm out of it now, but I miss it. And our son, he actually just turned 12 last week, and he's like, "Do you want to join the fire station with me when I'm old enough?" I'm like, I do, but I don't. Like, that's your time. You need that space and to grow. But meanwhile, I'm like, oh, that'd be great.
Yeah. And it blows my mind when I hear people that started, when they were 15 years old. My wife is one of them. She started in EMS. Her dad was a fire chief, and she's from Mississippi. So her dad's a fire chief in Mississippi, and she started EMS when she was like 15 years old. And it blows my mind because in the area that I lived in at that time, they didn't have programs where teenagers got into EMS. So that's so foreign to me. It's like, how could you have been in EMS at 15? Like, I was sneaking into bars and in the front quarter and stuff, right? At 15, like,
Yep.
you actually saving lives. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it kept me straight.
I was running around and doing dumb shit.
Right.
I would actually go to high school half day, and I would work on the ambulance the other half. And there was a time that I wasn't even old enough to drive. My mom was taking me to the station. And I'm like, it's amazing. That young, you can be on the back of an ambulance and
Yeah.
you can't even
We
drive
have a
yourself.
program now that we're teaching high schoolers, seniors in high school, an EMT class. So New Orleans EMS just started something like that. I think it's not, I don't think it's called the Explorers program. I'm sorry, I don't know what it's called. But we're putting some high school seniors through an EMT class that we're given. So we've just started something like that in the city.
That's
That's
awesome.
huge. Yeah.
Yeah, we keep talking to our son about it. He was one of those kids at 6 or 7 that would carry around a first aid bag with band-aids and put them on
Right.
every kid or run into the house. Oh, Joey fell outside. I'm gonna go get the bandage.
I taught him how to use a cat tourniquet also.
Yeah.
And he was intubating at
Intubating.
about 6.
He was. We'll have to send you the picture. He was born for it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So what was it like transitioning from law enforcement back into EMS? And did that dual perspective give you any unique insights on the job or managing stress?
The biggest thing for me was you don't get the discounts that the police get at the donut shops,
What?
food places, at the 7-Eleven. Like, I was so used to getting stuff for discounts or for free. You walk in your police uniform and they're like, oh, no, baby, you don't have to pay for none of that, And it's like, oh, all right, cool. Thank you. I would, appreciate it, whatever. I mean, you're always ready to pay, right? But with the police, you did blink an eye. And then when I went to EMS, it would, I'd be like, oh, going to get my little coffee and go to leave. And they like, oh, that's $1.50. And I'd be like, oh yeah, wait, I'm sorry. I'm in the wrong uniform, right? So nah, that's the least of it. But being in law enforcement, I wasn't in law, it was maybe about 2 years, 3 at the most. And I got in law enforcement because the sheriff's office at the time ran EMS also down in the parish that I live in. So I got hired on as an EMT. I had finished my EMT course. I got hired on as an EMT for the sheriff's department. And right about that time, um, they gave the 911 contract to a private service. But I'm working at the sheriff's office and they're like, what are you going to do with me? Well, you can be a deputy or whatever. And so that's how that came about. I actually was EMS first. Then they got rid of the 911 contract. And then I became a deputy for a couple of years. I worked in juvenile detention. I worked in the big jail and I worked on the streets. I did it all. And you learn a lot. It teaches you a lot about people. Let me tell you. It teaches you how to be aware of your surroundings and everyone that's in your surroundings. I learned how to approach vehicles. If there's a man down in a car, we go on those calls, right? And up until recently, we would go on them without the police. And that doesn't happen anymore because there was an incident and it involved a gun and it was a very serious incident. And we were very lucky that we didn't lose anybody. And so after that incident, we no longer go on man down calls if they're in a vehicle until NOPD gets there and secures the scene. I mean, but again, it teaches you different things. Like I learned how to approach a car in situations like that and to check and make sure. So you learn about a lot about safety, about your safety and so I learned that. The transition back, I it wasn't hard because EMS was always just really what I wanted to do. I always wanted to be a paramedic more so than a cop. And so after a couple of years, I was like, all right, I'm done playing cops and robbers. This is not really what I want to do. I'm going back. So by that point in time, my EMT had expired. So I had to go through the whole EMT class again. And then from there, I went through paramedic school and stuff. So,
Very cool. So you became the first female SWAT medic for New Orleans EMS. Pretty
right.
badass. That's awesome. A huge accomplishment. Can you
I,
tell us about that?
I was
You what?
I was still young.
Can you tell us about that journey and what it meant for you personally and professionally?
I mean, it was really cool. It was right after Katrina. I believe it's 2006. So the city's still destroyed. We still don't have most people back. And NOPD wanted to have medics with their SWAT team. Their SWAT team was doing a lot of stuff in the days or the year, months following Katrina. And it was, a very dangerous time in the city for first responders in general. I remember being in our units, and we would go out only during the day. And we would have, my unit had a probation and parole officer assigned to us, and he would ride in the front seat of the unit with a shotgun. Yeah, for us to go on calls. It was crazy. It was crazy times. Um, but the whole SWAT, so that's how the whole SWAT thing came about, because eventually those people have to go back to their lives, and then we're on our own, and NOPD's got a lot of crazy stuff going on. So it was about, I want to say it was about 6 weeks. There was myself and 4 others. I was only female, and it was tougher than going through like boot camp. I mean, it was crazy. We did everything. Like it didn't matter that we were the medics. We were being trained just like the police officers were. And there were a couple agencies that sent their police officers and deputies to go through the SWAT school also. And some of them didn't make it. They dropped out because it was just too rough. So it was an amazing experience. It was extremely taxing physically. Like I said, I was much younger then, so thank God. And it was I loved it. I loved it. We built a really strong bond with the police, and they, in turn had a lot of respect for us. It's hard to get a police officer's respect, at least back in the day. And when I say back in the day, that, no, it is back in the day, 18 years ago, so it was hard to get their respect as a EMT paramedic. And it was an interesting experience. It was great. I loved it. Um, and it was a huge, huge accomplishment. I was very proud of myself, because the 5 of us, nobody's ever done that before. We actually went through SWAT school. So we got to shoot guns and stuff like that, and learn how to enter buildings and all that stuff. So it was really cool. And then we hung out with them for a long time after that, going into warrants and abandoned buildings and, just stuff like that. And we still have a good tactical medic program that we are hand in hand with NOPD. We also work with the marshal's office, the federal marshals and stuff like that for high risk warrants. So we still have some very well trained tactical medics on board. So the one thing that I am really proud of is that I actually got a SWAT pin. They only give these pins to the police officers that graduate from SWAT school, and I got one of them. So
Heck
That's a
yeah.
huge,
Yeah.
huge deal.
Yeah, congratulations.
Talk about SWAT. Hold on real quick.
This one, so Britt's brother, my brother-in-law, he's a police chief, and he's also on the SWAT team. But here's their challenge coin that he just beautiful challenge coin.
Oh yeah, that's really cool.
Heck yeah.
So from SWAT and
My
dive
SWAT
rescue.
pin, I don't know where it's at. I'd have to go dig it out. It's in my I know where it's at, but
You have to send us a picture. We'll
Yeah.
add it in.
I'll do that. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool. From SWAT and dive rescue to now a captain, how did your role shift when you moved into leadership, and how did that impact your mental health?
Well, going from I used to do everything as a sprint medic, and then I became a lieutenant on the sprint. And so I was still doing everything. I mean, I was still doing water rescue, dive rescue, any kind of training that I could take, I took and became, a rescue medic, water, high angle, confined space, all that crazy stuff, right? Like stuff you just, I mean, throw to the wind. It's like, woo, I'm running
Let's
in, I'm
go.
saving the world, all that shit, right? And so I did all that, and it was a lot of fun. But once you move on from like the lieutenant role to the captain's role, life changes dramatically. You know, I try to keep up with all that stuff, and then it's just a different. It's just different. There's a lot of paperwork involved, and you know, office crap. We still go on calls. Don't get me wrong. You get to choose what calls you go on, pretty much, unless you know the other sprints are on calls, and then something critical comes out, you have to go on that. But you have to, like now, I'm almost kind of taking care of everybody on our watch more so than being. I'm not necessarily right next to them all of the time like I was when I was a lieutenant or sprint medic, you know. But I'm not as much in the trenches, but I'm on the other side of it, taking care of them, making sure they have shit that they need, you know, and just being a mama bear, you know. I get a little rough with them sometimes. I know that, you know, they understand that I'm a little rough around the edges at times, and but we have a good watch. We have a good team, and it works really well.
About how many people do you have on a shift with you?
Not enough.
Not enough.
Not even close to enough. We run our minimums at night are good. It's not enough.
Gotcha.
But right now my watch has, I believe there's 15 of us, you know, and that's 3 supervisors. I got a lieutenant and there's 2 captains. So, and then we also have a rescue medic that's in rescue and logistics. He's basically logistics, but he's also a paramedic. We have usually 5 units at night that are ours. In order to make our minimums, we are the city contracts out with a private service to provide ambulances for us at night or and during the day, so that we can, you know, stay up with the minimums and, you know, respond to 911 calls more efficiently. But you know, it's a nationwide problem with
Sure.
trying to find paramedics. We have plenty of EMTs, you know, so but trying to find paramedics is really the hardest part. And again, I know that's not just us; that's a nationwide problem.
So, Keeley, you were diagnosed with PTSD just 3 years into your career. What were the early signs and symptoms that told you something wasn't right? And how did you know it was time to step away?
I actually didn't, and that was the issue. You know, I didn't realize what was going on. I mean, I came from, you know, what was I doing it before I became an EMT? I was doing everything, selling shoes, delivering pizzas, you know, I had all kind of jobs, right? And then all of a sudden I'm a paramedic and an EMT, and it's like, ooh, what's going on? But when I look back on it, excuse me, I was starting to have nightmares. I was very angry all of the time. I did not like anybody. I couldn't work a code. It got to the point to where when I worked a code, I had to take something and cover people's eyes because I felt like they were staring at me. Even if their eyes were closed, I felt like that they were staring at me and screaming like, help me, like it was terrible, right? And so in the middle of a code, I would literally have to cover their eyes to work the code so I wasn't, you know, getting it screaming and stuff. And then nobody wanted to work with me because I was so fucking crazy and out of my mind. Everybody was complaining. It was like, you know, she's out the box. But of course, nobody was saying anything to me, you know.
Yeah.
And one day I had to screaming match with our operations director. And I was like, gonna quit. I'm not doing this. Like I was out the box. And I filled out my 2 week notice. I was like, I don't even think it was a 2 week notice. I wrote that I was done. And I went and handed it to my supervisor. And it was right before shift. And he told me it was Wayne. Wayne was his name. He said, "This is not the way to do it, Keeley." He said, you don't want to fuck up a civil service job, right? This is not the way to do it. He said, "Let me put you out." In the East, back in the day, New Orleans East was like a slow district. Like you didn't do anything for the 3 days, hardly. If you ran a couple calls for a 3-day weekend, that was a lot. He said, "Let me put you out there." He's like, and Monday morning we'll figure it out. And so that's what happened. So I was like, all right. So he basically saved my job, because I was ready to walk out. I was just like, here, bye, giving y'all
You're
everything.
done.
Yeah. And he's like, hold up. And so Monday morning we got in touch with the EAP program, and then they got me the help that I needed. So
Good.
I went through outpatient therapy for about 8 weeks and then went back to my job.
So that EAP program really did help you step back.
Yeah, it saved my career, because I was ready to I need to do something else. Like this is insanity. Look at me, I'm a lunatic, right? Because I didn't know what nobody got PTSD back then unless you came from war.
Yeah.
It was only a military thing. So when they told me, like, yeah, you got PTSD when I was at the facility, I was like, what the fuck? What do you mean I got PTSD? And actually, I was in a group with other first responders, and that was like, okay, it's not just me.
Yeah.
So it was a great program. And the EAP people helped me. And, once I went in through EAP, like nobody from work could contact me. Everything went through the EAP lady, the lady that was assigned my case. And I think it was about 7 to 8 weeks I was gone.
Well, thank goodness you got the help that you needed,
Man. Yeah. I wouldn't have had a career for sure. And who knows what would have happened after that,
Yeah. So let's talk about Hurricane Katrina, because we have no clue. We weren't down there, but you guys were in the mix of it. That was a defining moment for so many first responders. What stands out most in your memory about working through that disaster, and how did it affect you emotionally?
Well, of course, Katrina hit 2 years after I had my PTSD diagnosis. So I was very thankful that I had already been through that therapy and had learned some self-preserving and self-help techniques and just, keep my mind straight. It's hard to explain. Like it's just the entire city was underwater. We're coming up. It's 20 years in August. This makes 20 years, right? So, but I was out in New Orleans East, and like they had half the building, like a whole wall of the building had come down that they had put us in because of the wind or tornado. I'm pretty sure it was a tornado that came through. New Orleans East, my understanding, is like one of the first areas to flood because we had the lake and then you had the Mississippi River Gulf outlet, and they both toppled over and flooded that whole area. And so all of we had, I think, 2 ambulances, and we had a supervisor car out there, the fire trucks. We were in a Bell South building. All of it was underwater. Like we were up a level, almost like 2 stories up, and from where the ground level was. And so everything was underwater. When you looked out, it was like you were looking out over a lake. It was just unbelievable. There was a Walmart across the interstate, and the water, you know how high up that big blue Walmart sign is on their buildings, right? The water was just below that. That's how high the water was. Yeah. So we have no idea that the entire city's flooded, right? Because we've lost all communications. Long story short, they ended up getting a military helicopter to land on an overpass where we were, to evacuate all of the EMS. I think there was 6 of us out there to evacuate us so that we could get back to the city and help with evacuations in the city. Um, that's when we got on that helicopter and started flying back to the Superdome is when we saw the entire city was flooded. We had no idea. We thought it was just out in the east. And we would just, that was like probably the longest 3-minute helicopter ride of our lives, because none of us knew. We would just like, it was just complete silence. And then we got to the Superdome and it was fucking chaos. And so the stories that you hear are pretty much true. The majority of them. There was a lot of looting. There was, bodies everywhere. It was crazy. It was just wild, wild west,
Yeah.
And then trying to get people out was insane. So, but we did it. It took us 12 hours one day and getting all the people out from the convention center boulevard and stuff like that. We got everybody evacuated with the military, putting them on helicopters. I mean, the helicopters were landing like 3 at a time in this big parking lot that we had. And we were just, helping people with what they had left, some of them just to clothes on their backs, and all this is going on with, us, most of us realizing that, one, we probably don't have anything left. Our houses are probably all underwater and have lost everything. Some people had family members that were still in the city, so they had no way of knowing if they were dead or alive. Luckily, my family had evacuated my mother lived in Houston at the time. And so they had already evacuated. That was the one thing that kept me going, is that I knew my family was safe.
Yeah.
So that allowed me to be able to do the things that, your house and things like that can be replaced. So the fact that I knew my family was safe was what kept me going.
Heck yeah. Now, a few weeks ago, we were texting back and forth, and you sent me this story from 2012, a loss of a little 3-year-old Brianna Allen. It triggered a return to therapy for you. And for those who may not understand, can you describe how a single call, even years into your career, can reopen old wounds or reignite a trauma for you?
Yeah, I mean, again, I didn't realize it initially. I was deeply affected, obviously, by this. The entire city was affected by this shooting, because there was multiple people. It was her. There was a lady that was caught in a crossfire that was returning a rental car, and she's driving down the street. She was a trauma code. Brianna was she wasn't a trauma code. She was still alive when we got to her. I have no idea how, because she was completely eviscerated by AK-47 round. So it affected the entire city, and it was terrible. But you don't ever know when something's gonna trigger, the PTSD symptoms to come back. You really don't. Um, Especially when you don't have enough downtime. Like, you don't have time to sit down and process stuff properly, because you're so busy. We go from one call to another, right? And so you don't have downtime a lot of times. Things are different. Like, we try to give people downtime now. We are more aware of mental health issues now, at least New Orleans EMS is. And if somebody has a bad call, especially any call with children involved, it's like we take them out of service, whether they want to go out of service or not. We'll take them out of service, and we'll leave it up to them how long they want to be out of service. But it's like, hold up, all that other shit can wait. You need to
Reset.
Yeah, we have an on-call counselor that will come in. We have peer counseling. We can have CISD immediately if we need it. So that's something that's changed. But luckily, I was able to realize fairly quickly, because of previously having the PTSD and everything, but so I started having the whole nightmare thing started again. I started having nightmares. I started just feeling really anxious. I was, I noticed the symptoms because I was aware of what it was at this point. And as soon as I started having symptoms again, I reached back out to my therapist, who is amazing, and started going through therapy again. I was still working. I didn't have to take myself out of work, anything like that, because I was going to therapy, a couple times, sometimes twice a week, sometimes once a week. And so I went through therapy for a fairly long time after that call, just to get straight again.
Yeah.
But I
At
was,
least you,
I was at least able to keep working.
yeah.
And again, the lucky part for me, or the thing that was really good for me, is that I recognized it. Whereas the first time I didn't, because I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
At least I was aware now of PTSD, and that, we could actually have it, and I didn't have to be in a war, so to speak. Being on the streets is like being on a war, really, or being in a war, in a lot of places. So I was lucky in that sense that I knew what was happening. And I said, I can't let myself get like this again,
Yeah.
and I recognized it, and not just recognizing it, but you have to make that initial call and say, I need help, and it's okay if you need help. Like, we all need help, right?
We sure do.
Yeah, we all need help, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. It's nothing to be embarrassed about or ashamed of, I mean, you have other aspects of your life that you have other people in your life that depend on you, so your job is not everything. And so when you get to the point to where it's affecting you like that, trust me, it's affecting them also. You may
Yeah.
not realize it, but it's affecting them. And that, that can't happen. You have to fix yourself, so you have to get it together, and at least call somebody and start the process.
And that's what we hear that over and over with all of our guests that we have on. It's the hardest thing to initially reach out for that help. And especially us, we're the people that are the fixers. We always know how to fix everything. Until it comes to ourselves, we don't want to let everyone, we don't want to give us ourselves that saying that we have something wrong with us, but it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
And that's what we always say. It's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to not do anything about it.
Yeah. You don't want to appear weak and, whatnot, but I think the way people look at mental health these days, or over the last few years, has changed tremendously, and moved away from that. Or you're weak if you can't, come to work because you had a bad call, or whatever. Like,
It was always the suck it up, buttercup. That's what we always refer to.
yeah, and that's just not the case. I mean, what I can handle is different from what you can handle, and that was something, especially becoming a supervisor, something that I had to learn, is that because they don't do it the way I would have done it doesn't make it wrong. They're just doing things a different way, because that call affected this person and wouldn't affect me. I'd be like, what do you mean that affected them? I had to learn that it's different, just because it affects you differently than it affects them.
Yeah, exactly. I think we were talking to our friend Taylo, and a couple months ago there was a bus accident and kids were on it, and he even said, like, when he arrived to the scene, all the kids were out. The worst injury was a sprained ankle. So, like, he's like, okay, this scene's fine. But the people that responded before him saw kids screaming on a bus for help, and that affected them differently because they have no idea what's going on or what's wrong with these kids. So even though he saw just a sprained ankle, he's like, I had to keep in mind my medics and my EMTs and everyone else that was there before me saw the chaos of it, and he had to deal with it differently with them. So it's everyone sees a scene differently and affects differently. So that's definitely a huge point to remember.
Yeah, and it's taken me a long time to realize that, and a lot of therapy. I still go to therapy. I go to therapy every week. So, or every other week, whatever it is. So I still go to therapy. I started going back to therapy about 2 years ago, and for me, it works. I know it may not work for everybody, but for me, it works.
This is therapy for us. We
Yep.
say it's free therapy.
Everybody has a different therapy, right? I mean,
Yep.
for real.
So you're married to a paramedic and have 2 adorable young sons. How does having a partner in public safety shape the way you process and talk about trauma at home?
Believe it or not, we don't talk about work a lot. If we need to, we know we can. She handles things completely different than I do. She handles things a lot better, honestly, work related than I do. I take things more internally and stuff. She's better at handling that stuff, and we're completely different in that sense. But we don't really talk about work too much. Again, if something's bothering us, we've had a bad day at work or whatever. Yeah, I mean, we can always talk about it. So it's not like I don't talk to her about it on purpose, or she doesn't talk to me about it on purpose. So we're always there for each other in that sense. But we have so much other shit going on and so many other things to talk about that are happy and, whether and stressful. I mean, it's not just all, rainbows and unicorns, right? Life is stressful. So
I wish it was. I wish it was.
I know. But it's nice knowing that I have somebody that is there that knows exactly what I'm saying, like gets it, because they go through the same shit.
Absolutely. That's what we said. We kind of just look at each other, and I know if he needs to talk about it for a few minutes, and then we let it go, or if it's just, no, I just need my space. So then I just give him that time to relax before he gets home, when he gets home from work, before we have dinner or sit down as a family.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you're featured on A&E's Nightwatch. What was that experience like?
Really?
And
Crazy, man.
Great, what?
I mean, all of a sudden, we didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, we just didn't want to look like idiots on TV, and they're like, we're not going to make you look like idiots. Like, we're going to film you doing what you do. Like, we're not, like, all right. So you have to, like, trust these people, right? And they're coming from Hollywood and California, and you're like, I don't know. I'm going to trust these California people. But, we did. And they're ended up being amazing people. And I'm good friends with a couple of them still to this day. But it was different. And it was very, initially, it was kind of nerve wracking because we were talking earlier, when in my sprint unit, I have a sound person, I have a producer, and I have 2 camera people. So that's 4 people in my sprint car. And one of the camera people is sitting in the front seat, and the camera feels like it's like right here, right? What is so weird. And then we get on scenes, and it's like a friggin' clown car. All these people piling out of the car because they're jumping out to start filming and stuff. So initially, that first season that we filmed, and people didn't know about the show, and they were really kind of like, hold up, especially you go up in a hood, and they don't like cameras jumping in, or just people in general jumping out of cars at them, right? And I get it, and so people are a little hesitant, and kind of like, what the fuck's all this? Like, we're not the police. Please don't think we're the police. As I always said, we're not the police. I didn't want them to get angry. And but really, they do their own thing. They would, when we got on scenes, they literally disappeared, and we never saw them. For real. So they have, the producer in their ear telling them, go over here, go over there. We're doing our thing. We have no idea what they're doing. And they were never in the way. They never, they really just filmed. That's all they did. And so after that first season came out and people started watching it, and it was just insane how popular it was, and people recognizing you was totally weird, right? And the worst was going on a call with Holly. Man, let me tell you, call with Holly. I want to say it was like one weekend or something. I don't remember. She was on a truck, and I think she was, yeah, because she wasn't a supervisor yet. So we go on this call on Bourbon Street. Now, Bourbon Street's kind of chaotic anyway, especially on the weekends. Oh my God, when she got out of the unit, I swear to God, you would have thought a fucking rock star out of the limousine. People came running. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, what, and they're screaming her name. And I was just like, y'all, we got to go take care of this person. And, so you're trying to tell people, like, we have a call to go on, like, just chill out, chill out, chill out. And so that was crazy. It was it was crazy. And to this day, people, recognize you, and you can always tell when they're playing reruns or playing a lot more, because a lot more people start singing you again or recognizing you and yelling out to you and stuff. So it is very humbling, and it was really cool because they displayed they showed what EMS actually does, like legit showed what EMS does. And the amount of young people that have reached out and said, I became an EMT because of the show, is mind blowing, so it's pretty amazing. And it was an amazing trip. So it was a lot of fun.
You guys definitely changed the landscape of public safety. And that's what, when we spoke to Holly also, that's what we said. We're like, you guys created more EMTs, more paramedics, and you should see like some of the, when we post and saying that we were interviewing, you're like, we became an EMT because of Keeley and Holly. And that's so cool because you guys really changed the landscape and made the profession and showed the profession in the correct light and what we actually do.
Yeah. I mean, all
It's
we
freaking
did,
awesome.
all we were doing was what we do every day, all of us. We just happened to be the city that they picked and happened to be the group of people that they picked. You could have, I know they did it in other cities and stuff. New Orleans is very unique, right? In that sense, but you don't have to.
You guys are the best ones.
Nowhere, right? So, and it's cool because like people follow you on social media, and they'll recognize the boys out, when we're out as a family or whatever, and the wife and whatnot. And actually, Connor, I showed them Nightwatch the other day. They've seen the show when they were young, and didn't understand it. And so I pulled it out just to see his reaction. He lost his mind. Connor was jumping up and down, screaming, Dada. They call me Dada. Dada, Dada, like screaming at the TV, over here. I'm over here. So I was sitting on the sofa. I'm like, dude, why are you? I'm right here. And he was just like, and then Colton would look at me, and then he'd look at the TV, and then he'd look at me again, and he'd just start smiling, So they were on an episode too. They did an episode. They came, it was like an ending to one of the episodes. They came to the house and filmed us as a family, just kind of hanging out and stuff. And so the boys were on it. So
Awesome.
And a wife, yeah.
We watched you last night. It was the episode where you pulled up and it was like a party bus and all the girls were twerking. You're like, they're drag. And there was the psych patient that pulled up in the car. We're like, there's Keeley. We're going to talk to Keeley tomorrow.
Yeah, man. And that was fun. That was, I think, like one of the first or second season. That was an early season.
Yeah.
The people that were filming didn't know, about the party bus because they're not from here, right? And so I was like, oh, look, they got the party bus. They out there twerking. Let's stop and go see what's going on, And then all of a sudden it turns into, the crazy guy driving the car into the wall and all that shit. So
it was right place at the right time.
Yeah. I was like, on.
You're like, wait a minute. So did being part of a televised EMS show bring any unexpected emotional weight, especially when reliving certain scenes or seeing public reactions?
I'm sorry, repeat that?
Yeah, so being on the television show, did it add any unexpected emotional weight, especially reliving some scenes or seeing public reactions?
When we would go in and do our interviews about calls, how they do that, they have the interviews where they play in the show and then they talk to us, right? So when we would go in to do those, they would say, okay, we're going to talk about this, this call or whatever. And there were a few times, yeah, that I got emotionally moved, telling the story about that particular call. It didn't necessarily happen on scene because, you're in the moment, you're doing your thing. And, and then that's just another, it just shows you that, this shit really affects you, because obviously I hadn't talked to anybody about it, whatever scene it was, and yet you sit down and you start talking to the producer and they start asking you questions about this particular call, and it starts bringing back all those memories. And it's like, that really did fuck with me. Like, it really, look at me. I'm getting a little emotional about it. And it was really good because we were able to get things out and talk about it, so it was almost like therapy in a sense when, we were there and stuff and we were talking with the producer. And so, you're going back and forth and you're asking questions and you're talking and you're just kind of purging. And it was almost therapeutic in a sense.
So you found peace and expression through photography. What does that creative process do for you, your mental health, and that the field can't do for you?
Well, it was something that my therapist and I talked about, like finding something that I like to do to help process or just to decompress. And I've always loved taking pictures. And so there'll be times when I'm like, I think I'm going to go take pictures today and just ride around and just take random pictures of wherever I decide to go and stuff. And I like using a real camera. My phone actually takes better pictures than my 35 millimeter camera, but I like using a real camera because you have, you're doing the lens and you're holding it, and it's just a process, and your mind is completely off of everything else and just in the moment with what you're taking pictures with, whether it's nature or, a juggler, somebody juggling on Bourbon Street, or, people eating beignets or whatever it is, right?
Yes, please.
It's a nice release. I don't do it often enough. I really, feel like I need to do it more often, but, life happens and a lot of times you don't have time, and that's where we get caught up at. Life happens, but you really have to stop and take care of yourself. All of us do.
Absolutely.
So it's easy to say those words and to tell everybody else what you need to do and what we should do, but actually doing it is a different story.
Sure
So,
is.
I need to do it more often. I love it. It's not anything like I don't have my pictures hanging up in a gallery or anywhere, but,
It's for you.
right. I love it. And it's my calm and my peace, and just puts me in a totally different place. Just talking about it actually makes me feel really calm. It's weird.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I get it. I understand. So, Keeley, how do you create balance between the chaos of emergency calls and the quiet moments with your family or your camera?
It took me a long time, but I leave work at work. Especially after having children, they require so much attention, and just life is just so busy with kids. I leave work at work. When I leave work, I don't answer the phone. My work phone goes off. I mean, if it's some type of a disaster, they'll get in touch with you. I mean, my regular phone and stuff. But I just have to leave it. I don't hang out too much with people from work. Most of my friends I have very few friends, honestly, that, I do anything with, but, because I love spending time with my family. I mean, that's where I want to be. That's what I want to do. And, I just leave it. I leave it. It took me a long time to learn how to do that. And when I punch that clock and roll out those doors, work doesn't come until I go back to work. Now I do have to check my email. As a supervisor, you got to check your email. Like, they want you to do it once a day, but I don't check it once a day. I'll check it every other day or whatever. But yeah, that's me. That's how I deal with it. I just leave it. I have to, not just for my mental health, really. My mental health, and I don't want anything that I'm done. Like my day is over. But they've had 12 hours or 14 hours of me. Now my personal life gets me. My family gets me. My friends get me.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. All right, we're almost done picking your brain. A couple more. For any responder listening who might be experiencing the early signs of burnout or trauma, what would you say to them right now?
Don't be afraid to ask for help. Just go to somebody, whether it's a friend or if your company has an EAP program or a supervisor, a peer, anybody that you trust. Just reach out to them. You don't necessarily have to, get sent off to a facility or do outpatient therapy, or whatever it is. If you get it early enough, if you talk to somebody, just, talking to a friend, that may in itself help you and be able to handle things. But you have to reach out to somebody. It's hard. It's very hard, but you have to, for your own sake and for the people that love you. You have to reach out.
Are there any specific resources, therapy programs, peer support, wellness tools that you would recommend to other first responders?
Find something that you like to do. Again, my thing was I was in therapy. I was into photography as a teenager, and so throughout my life, I've always dabbled in photography. It was something that I like to do. Find something that you like to do. If you like to go to the gym and work out, if that's your thing, if you run, some people run. I only run when someone's chasing me.
That's right.
Right. And I hope I don't have to run far. Some people run. So just if there's something that you enjoy doing, do it. Do it. Use it as your getaway.
So, Keeley, what advice would you give to a brand new medic just entering the field, especially around protecting their mental health from day one?
I don't talk to them. If they're brand new, I don't talk to them. I have to be around for a while before I start talking to them. I'm teasing. I mean, if they ask, again, we have it set up to where we have a lot of new people, right? Like there's a lot of new medics, there's a lot of new EMTs, and they get into this business and they like, holy shit, what did I just see? You just have to be aware of them. You can see it in people's after a while. You can, if you're in this business long enough, when something's wrong with one of your people. And you really have to watch the new people, and they're all so young. So they're all very young on top of being very new, coming from being a barista at Starbucks to, me elbows deep in whatever it is that you elbows deep in. And so you just got to kind of watch them, and ask them, hey, how you doing? Just not like looking for something, but checking in on them. Ask them how they doing. Everything going okay? You need anything? Asking their peers or their partner, how's the new guy doing or whatever. And making sure that they know that we have resources available if they start feeling a certain way. I mean, they're told that during orientation, and they meet our therapists and stuff like that. We have a therapist that's there Monday through Friday in office.
That's awesome.
I don't know her hours. I want to say it's day shift, but she'll hang out overnight. She'll hang out and meet with night crews if you need to. She's available 24/7. As is our medical director. Dr. Marino is pretty awesome with the mental health issues and stuff. She's awesome with everything, but is very concerned about our mental health. So 24 hours a day, you really have anybody. You have people available that you can call, and we encourage you to.
Heck yeah. All right, Keeley, last but not least, you ready for it? We're going to end it on a bang.
Okay. Oh God, I'm scared.
So finally, how do you want to be remembered in this profession? Not just for what you did, but for how you carried the weight.
I would like to be remembered as someone that was very passionate about EMS and about caring for people, and took their job very seriously, but not too seriously that you don't have fun doing it, and enjoying meeting people and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, I hope people remember me outside of being on the show called Nightwatch. You know, that I was very dedicated to my profession and love being a paramedic.
And that's what we wanted to convey to everyone that will be watching this is it's not just a white night watch. We wanted to understand who Keeley was and what you did and why you're in this profession. And I think we covered that very well.
Yeah, and I get that people are going to remember me because of the show, because why would they know me otherwise unless you're in the city and have worked for us or have come across me helping you out. And that's always really nice too, is when somebody remembers you from a call. When somebody says, "Hey, you helped my dad. He was having a heart attack one day," or "You delivered my baby." So people that's the best compliment you can ever get, is someone remembering you from a call, not from a TV show, but they
Yeah.
remember when you helped them or their family member or whatever it was. And that's the biggest compliment anybody could ever give you.
Heck yeah, it is. I think we're going to leave it at that, guys. And Keeley, we thank you so much. And if anyone wants to be on the show like Keeley is extra special, though. We love it. Hit us up at twcpodcast@proton.me. Give us an email. We'll try to get you scheduled out. And we love the show. We think it's reaching out. We're down in New Orleans right now. So we love it.
Awesome. I love watching you guys.
Well, thank you so much, Keeley. We got a T-shirt for you.
Awesome.
I'll get that sent out this week for sure. Rep it with pride, please. Just stick around for a minute once we finish up. Anything else you'd like to add, baby?
No, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're awesome.
Called her baby. That was sweet.
So we just celebrated our 13-year wedding anniversary in Disney on the same day as my son's 12th birthday. So it was awesome.
Anniversary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My wife
Keeley.
and I just had one on the 13th of May. We made 7
awesome.
years. Yep. And then the boys' birthday was May 19th. They turned 6. May was a busy month. So
heck yeah. It's a special month. That is an extra special month for sure.
Well, happy anniversary, y'all. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you, Keeley.